Good morning, everyone. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our program this morning, and thank you guys for being here. It's almost Friday. Happy Thursday. So, a couple of announcements. I'm Kirk Rich. I'm the current president of the Georgia chapter of CCIM, which a lot of you know me and I know you, but to our guests, we want to welcome each one of you here, and if you have any questions about the chapter or what we do or who we are, please see one of the CCIM folks that are designated with their pins, or feel free to come up to me after we get done with the program. I'd love to talk to you more. A couple of things. First of all, we have a cooperative agreement. We're doing some things with SIOR this year, which is a sister organization of which I'm also a part of SIOR. And we are coming up next week with a CE course, a continuing education course for those of you that need to get some continuing ed. 3 cycles of change. It's 3 hours of CE, and the cost is $50. So a good opportunity to get in with SIOR, but also get some CE done and learn some good things. And then this weekend's early Saturday morning, which we have 15 CCIM signed up, we're joining SIOR in a Feed the Homeless program, which we're very excited about. We're going to meet at the varsity at like 6:15 in the morning, so it'll be an early morning, but we're going to go help out with Hugh Platford and John DeCuto's initiative that they do with Feed the Homeless. So if anybody's interested in joining us, we have 15 strong souls coming with a few kids, but we'd love to have more. The more the merrier. And again, this is a joint effort with SIOR, so it should be a fun morning and rewarding. Then on September 17th, we have a chapter meeting with Abe Scher speaking on foreign investment. It's basically a lunch and learn. So we do have limited space, and as you know, you can sign up on the website, but we'll also be getting some e-blast out through our communications firm and through Katie. So if any of you have interest in being in that, please sign up early because it will fill up. And then on November 12th, which is very exciting, you'll be getting an email out. The friends and family and sponsors will be getting one out within the next 24 hours. But we have Donald Radachak. Dr. Radachak is going to be our keynote speaker at this year's Economic Forecast Lunch at Cherokee Town Club. And that is November the 12th. It's a lunch event, and that's our big event of the year. We always sell out, and this year we're doing a little something different. Up until September 15th, we're giving a little bit of an early bird moment where you get a little bit off of a table sale or your ticket. Then after September 15th, it goes up a little bit from last year. So we are doing that to spur along people to get in early. That is another event that typically sells out. So it should be a very, very good program. Dr. Radachak has not spoken to the commercial real estate groups in a long time, and he's very excited to be in front of us. So it should be very, very interesting. Last but not least, we could not do what we do without our sponsors. I want to thank each one of them very, very much. We appreciate all you do, all the times that you show up. And hopefully we're giving back to you guys with some good business, good contacts, and good networking. But we want to thank our platinum sponsors, which is Marcus and Millichap, Bull Realty, the Simpson Company, and Kitchens Kelly Gaines PC. And then our silver sponsors are Adams Realtors, Build Right, Commercial Real Estate Show, Commercial Experts Incorporated, First Colony Financial Corp., National Property Inspectors, Standard Landscape, Stout, Kaiser and Hendrick, LLP, Strategic Exchange Advisors, and Signature Bank of Georgia, and last but not least, Excelligent. So thank you guys and gals for all you do for us very, very much. Now, today we have a very interesting program set with great moderators, Sharon Goldmacher with Communications 21, which also helps us internally with our communications to the public. Then we got 3 great speakers today. We've got Amy Wenk with the Business Chronicle. We've got Jared Schenke, which is the editor of Bisnow. And then we have Liz, which is with North American Properties and Vice President of Marketing, Liz Gillespie. So we're very excited to have these folks here. I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about what they do internally, because typically when we do complete bios, we probably say things that they'd rather us not say, and they'd rather promote things that they do want to promote it. So we'll let them do their own quick bio as they start. But again, Sharon Goldmacher's moderating, and we have a great program ahead. So here we go.
Good morning, everybody. So before we get started, I just wanted maybe to engage the early morning audience and myself, because I am not a morning person. How many people have embraced your own content publishing, whether that's on LinkedIn, other social platforms, or your own website? Show of hands. Not bad. I thought we were going to get like 2 people. So hopefully this will help take it to the next level. And for folks who are not yet fully embracing it, this may give some added education. So I will have Jared start first and give little self-bios, and we'll go down the line.
Okay. Jared Schenke. I am the editor and reporter for Bisnow here in Atlanta. All online commercial real estate publication. We, as a corporate, we're in over 24 cities now. I cover Atlanta and San Diego. Don't ask me how I do San Diego. And we have the email newsletter that shows up in your inbox, and also now, within the last 6 months, a pretty dynamic website. Your turn.
Hello, I'm Liz Gillespie with North American Properties, and I oversee marketing for NAP Atlanta, and then I'll also support marketing throughout North American Properties. We're based in Cincinnati primarily, or in Cincinnati, have several other offices, but I primarily focus in Atlanta on Atlantic Station, Avalon, and we also have a multifamily group, and we're about to break ground on 3 different projects. So I spend a lot of time on a lot of different things. And we have a hotel that just got approved. Very excited about that. And office, so pretty much cover the gamut.
Good morning. My name is Amy Wenk, and I'm staff writer for Atlanta Business Chronicle. I cover specifically the hospitality, retail, restaurant industries, which crosses over into tourism, conventions, multifamily, mixed use, etc. Where our publication is part of the American City Business Journals. It's 40 plus papers across the country. We are subscription based, but we also have a pretty popular, I think, web product, daily email blasts. So we try to get a lot of good information up there for everyone to read as well. Thanks.
So my first question, we're going to start off with Amy and Jared in terms of, as being reporters working in the massive digital age that we are in, where do you really source your content for stories? And I'll give you a couple of options to think through, but do you follow companies on LinkedIn and Twitter? Do you review company websites, newsletters, blogs, that kind of thing? Are you part of real estate groups on LinkedIn?
Well, I don't know if I want to say too much in front of Jared, but I mean,
that's right, earmuffs.
A variety of sources. Of course, we, most of all prefer one-on-one interactions with executives. We love to meet for breakfast, lunch, talk about the market, talk about, their projects, hopefully gain their trust, and, they'll come to us when, they want to break a story. So that's, number one. Public documents are a huge help for us, of course, permits, different filings, unfortunately lawsuits and that sort of thing. But social media definitely is a great aid to what I do, especially when it comes to research. When I'm looking for information about a company, I look in every avenue. Whether that's their Facebook page, maybe it's a project update. Pond City Market, Avalon, they're great at providing little snippets of what's going on at that exact moment at their project. So I definitely try to keep up to date on those things. Twitter is great for leads on different things. If a broker's tweeting about a particular tenant not in the market, my kind of radar goes up. Like, well, maybe that's their new client that they're bringing to Atlanta. So I do look for leads in social media.
I've said this before somewhere else, and I'm going to say this again because I'll hold to it. So God created the world in 6 days. On the 7th day, he rested. And in deference to Liz, on the 8th day, marketing has been trying to recreate the world every day since. Bottom line is, we have all this new stuff now. Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and I'm from a different generation, so I don't proliferate on it as much as others. Bottom line is, though, for me, picking up the phone, the old school way is still the number one way in which I get my news. Talking to other people, sharing tips, getting stories that way, and then going to the source and asking if they're willing to talk and get the story. Now, do I follow companies on Twitter? Yes. Do I follow individual brokers on Twitter? Absolutely. Am I starting to get news on social media? In limited ways, you're starting to see things, someone say something on social media that could prompt a story. I'm thinking of a recent example that sticks on top of my head. I follow Maria Saporta, and something was mentioned on Twitter to her the other day about, looks like construction had stopped on a project. Well, the Chronicle beat us to the punch on the story when it broke, but there was a tip that came from some conversation between two people on Twitter. By and large, at least I'm not using it in that direction. Now, with my company, the CEO is 36. The company's really young. I'm probably the third oldest person in this company, and they're all about new media. I mean, a good example is one of our peers in the industry, Vox. I don't know, it's kind of like a Gawker, but they just got $200 million infusion from NBC Universal. So the online world's the way to go. I'm just not sure in terms of reporting technique that no matter what new tool comes out, do things change for me? And I would suspect for any reporter all that much. The old way is still the tried and true.
Great. Liz, your profile says that you focus on building community through outreach and social media engagement. So can you tell us a little bit more about North American Properties' approach, and specifically with regard to social engagement?
So to tell our story, I have to start back with when we acquired Atlantic Station. And Atlantic Station 5 years ago did not have such a great reputation. There were a lot of challenges, a lot of people talking about it, and the words coming out of people's mouths and online were not very positive. So we determined that the best thing we could do was really first seek to understand how people, we wanted to understand, and the only way you can understand is to really ask. So we established a 9-point plan and handed it to a local blogger who Amy knows really well, and you probably all do, Caleb Spivak, who has What Now Atlanta. He came up to me, 21 years old at the time, by the way, came up to me at an event and said, "You must hate me because I'm always trashing Atlantic Station on my blog." And I was like, "Okay, well, thanks for that." And I said, "Love to sit down with you when NAP takes over with Mark, and let's talk about what you perceive to be our issues, and let's see what we can do together to get the word out about what we're planning to do." So we did. We sat, and he wanted to go to Which Wich. At the time, that was his favorite restaurant. He's far more discerning now, I must say. But we sat down with him. We handed him the 9-point plan. He was thrilled because we gave it to him exclusively when we first started. This is what we're going to do in Atlantic Station. And he was thrilled because it was great content for his blog, and he was able to post it. He posted it unedited and just invited people to say what they thought. And I want to say that over time, there were at least 500 comments, somewhere between 500 and 1,000 before it was all said and done, and people told us what they thought. There was a lot of love. Well, I won't say so much love. There was a lot of hate, some love, but there's a fine line between those two. And had we not pushed it out from a social perspective, all those conversations would have continued to happen without us. So we chose to get engaged and to get involved. So social became like a mini focus group for us. And we used the content and the information that was coming back to us through these social channels to help redefine and define and refine our vision for Atlantic Station and to transform it. So that's where it all began. And we just pulled in really tight. We weren't doing any traditional media. We felt like we really needed to get it right. And then as we got it right, we would start pushing out the message from that perspective, but to keep it really tight with people who cared and really were interested in knowing what we were doing. So when we had news to report, we would hand it off to the bloggers, and the bloggers would do what made sense to them, and that information would come back and help us continue to refine our story. So social was a huge part of the transformation of Atlantic Station, and by going through this process, we were building brand advocates, and we were empowering our community to help us define and curate what the Atlantic Station experience would be. From a retail mix, from an experience mix, from the events and programs that we would host. Even when we thought about going non-smoking, we posted it and said, should we? And I think we got 1,000 comments on that between comments and shares. And we, in a 4-day period of time, said, we're going smoke-free. You asked for it, we're doing it, and we launched a no smoking program. So we really use social, and we listen to people, and we believe that from a community engagement perspective, it's a great way to make sure that what you're doing is going to resonate with your community. I don't mean to talk so much, but we basically deployed those same principles with Avalon. We launched a social program probably 2.5 years out before we even broke ground, or as soon as we purchased the property, we started social. What do you want to see here? And started asking the community. We toured the country, went and visited examples of what we thought we might do, and asked the community, what do you think? Should we have a fountain? What do you think about these spaces? What do you think about these retailers? And really empowered the community to co-create the experience that we're creating. So they're our partners in all this. That's kind of long-winded, but in a nutshell. And by the way, that blogger came to work with us for 2 years because he loved what we were doing. He was like, I want to be part of that. So he came to work with us for a couple of years. He's back on his own now, but it was a great experience.
Great.
Actually, I got a question for Liz about this. And I'm curious because when you said you went to social on Atlantic Station, that makes sense given who the audience was. The audience is much different in Avalon. So if you went social there, did you use the same outlets, or did you, because to me, when in a suburban area, it seems like you would reach out more to the individual neighborhood associations, perhaps, than
Well, one of
social
the
media.
fastest growing audiences on Facebook, for example, is 45 to 55. And I'm assuming that's in part the audience that's Avalon shoppers.
Right. And one of the reasons why we went out so early at Avalon was for that exact reason. In Atlantic Station, it was quick and easy to really engage an audience. In Alpharetta, it was a little more challenging, like you said, because there weren't as many that were connected. They were on different platforms. They were more Facebook oriented than Twitter. And now Instagram has really started to rise as well. So we had to engage the audience, and they knew if they wanted to know what we were doing, that's where they would go to find out. And it was interesting because in a really short period of time, we were even able to influence city council votes with the groundswell that we could create on social media. So it wasn't as fast growing in Alpharetta as it was in Midtown, but it definitely took off. It was just constant information flow and people sharing.
Great. So this next question is for everyone. Do you feel like commercial real estate companies and brokers have embraced social media and content publishing versus, say, other industries that you either have worked with or see? And if so, what positive or good examples do you have? I'll actually start with you, Amy.
I really do feel like most commercial real estate companies see the value in social media as a powerful marketing platform. For example, companies like Cushman and Wakefield, Transwestern, they actually hire former journalists to blog for them, to put out, well-written content about trends in the market. The individual brokers, I really feel like they use Twitter, Facebook to build their brand. It's about presenting yourself as an expert in your field, not just promoting your products, your services, but really curating a mix of content that people want to read. They'll come to you as this expert in this niche, and I think it's really powerful for CRE.
Liz?
I agree. And most of the news that I get, I go to Twitter first. I go to Twitter and I'll search a company. If I hear of a certain trend that's out there and I know a certain company is really excelling in that, I'll go to that company and see what they're reporting on. I don't know that I don't know that I could say specific companies I go to, because I'm very focused on, it's almost more about the trend than it is about who's reporting on it. I'm more about the hashtag. So it's like if I want to know what people are saying about walkability, or if I want to know what people are saying about transit or placemaking or experiential or technology, then I search that hashtag, and that's where I'll find the companies who are really considered the experts, because they rise to the top in terms of the content they create. But I think our industry is doing a much better job of using it as a tool to, as Amy said, from a thought leadership perspective, because every company is known for something. It's like you try to find that one thing that you excel at and that you're known for, and then that's the area that you focus on in terms of your social platform. It's making sure that people understand the why of what you do rather than just what you do.
So, that every company uses social media to an extent, of course. I think the question you have to ask yourself is who your target audience is. All right, for North American, it makes sense what they do and the push they do in social media, because a lot of their properties do attract to millennials and younger people. But we had this, when I was at Ackerman & Company doing their marketing PR, we had this issue, if your target audience is a decision maker in a Fortune 500 company, is doing something on Twitter really going to, is the most effective way of or writing a blog is the most effective way of marketing? Because when you do blogging or that kind of online marketing, there needs to be a real concerted effort. And big companies have the resources to do that. Little guys, it's harder to spend your time when you're chasing business to put in the time and the effort to do this kind of stuff. But again, it goes back to your target audience. If you know who your target audience is, maybe picking up the phone is just a better method of drumming up business than working on a blog.
Okay, all good points. Do each of you have a favorite social tool for business specifically? Go ahead.
I know Facebook has more reach, but I guess I prefer Twitter, the brevity of it. It's nice to scan headlines and just kind of get a quick look at what other people are talking about, writing about. So for me, that's my preferred method. And also, it's a way for me to push out, speaking of Twitter.
You still have to talk, sorry. You can't leave just yet.
Somebody just followed me. For me, as a reporter, it's a great way for me to push out my content really fast. I have some, 2,000, I have 2 Twitter accounts, but, some thousands of people that follow. And, you push out a headline, and it just broadens, your readership up that more. So I don't Facebook professionally, just personally, just because I don't know why. Exactly. So Twitter.
Jared, do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I have a Twitter account too, and I'm going to wait for my phone to beep here if anybody wants to. But I don't. I push out content. I think we all kind of do that. It's not my main venue. I'm more of a lurker on there. I like reading what other people are saying than I say anything.
A mole.
Yeah.
You're a mole.
Probably the more interesting change that I've noticed in the last 5 years or so is, and Amy's right, while my Facebook is my account, is my own personal account, I have a lot of people in the industry who I'm friends with. And I can't tell you how many times now, it's more than a handful of times that I've actually conducted interviews on that little chat app on Facebook.
Message app.
At 11 or 12 o'clock at night.
Interesting.
So that has become an interesting tool. I also am surprised when I do check my LinkedIn. I actually check it more and often now because of this. I'm getting emails on LinkedIn or that I didn't realize people were even doing that. But so I'm finding people reach out to me that way.
Okay.
So that's probably the 3 main tools.
Okay. Liz, do you have a favorite?
In terms of the way we market our properties, each platform reaches a different person. Personally, I love Twitter in terms of surfing and looking for news. Because as Amy said, it's a great place to get a quick snapshot, look for headlines, and then find out if you want to read further than that. When you look at how much information comes to us every day, I don't know about you guys, we got like 300, 400, 500 emails a day. You get phone calls. It's like people can reach you in so many different ways that you really are looking for the sound bites. You've got so much information that you've got to digest in a day that the shorter the better for me. So Facebook, from a business perspective, for me personally, is not the way I'd go, but we use it for our properties. Twitter I love because it's a snapshot. I love Instagram because then I just have to look at the picture, right? A picture, speaks 1,000 words. But from a business perspective, it's probably more Twitter. One thing I wanted to say to about what Jared said about millennials is I look at this as we focus on a new class consumer. It's not the millennial. It's not the Gen X. It's not boomers. It's the new class consumer. I'm one of those. It's someone who's technology savvy. It's someone who appreciates walkability, who likes new things, personalization, wants great service. It's like we all want the same things. Those of you who have kids, teenagers, or even young adults, they want the same things you want. You want life to be easier. And so we look at social from a new class consumer perspective, those people who are forward thinkers, on the edge. And I heard a new term when I was at this conference last week called screenagers. So we're all screenagers. If you live online, you're a screenager too. Doesn't matter how old you are, it's just where you're going to get your information.
I like that. Liz, just not to keep you talking too much, but just give people a kind of an idea of how you balance your day. Like, how much time do you kind of monitor what's going on versus posting versus updating the website or other marketing activities? How do you kind of find that balance?
Well, fortunately, I have people that do that.
That's good.
So that's awesome. I could not do it all. There's no way. You know, as Jared said, it takes time. But I do think if you're a one-person team, being socially active is important because it's a way for you to keep your brand out there and keep your brand fresh. But we do have at Atlantic Station and Avalon, we have a community manager at each property, and it's their job 24/7, not just from 9 to 5, but 24/7 to monitor social. I'm on it every day. I check to see what's being posted. I'm sort of like a helicopter mom for my kids out there, just to see what's going on and, you know, make sure everything's staying on brand and that. And then we also have a digital strategy person who focuses on website and everything that's interactive. You'd be surprised too. When I said that about the 24/7, I saw a tweet come in one night about 11 o'clock about a big rally that was going to be happening at one of our properties the next day that we had not planned or authorized, and it wasn't a happy thing. And so we were going back and forth online till about 3 o'clock that morning trying to get information out to all the people who were planning this event at our property. And had we not been focused on it, we would have totally missed it, and this massive thing would have happened that would have disrupted disrupted life, for one of our assets. Had we not been paying attention and not been focused on it, it's just the way of life today. But paying attention, I think, is really key.
It is. Jared and Amy, do you guys break news on social media or just via website or email? How do you manage that?
For us, it's still the website mainly, and the newsletter to a lesser extent. They used to be the newsletter. We would have to hope the news would wait till it came out that day. Mm-hmm. We're now posting it almost immediately once it's written on our website. But there's a reason for that strategically, which is we want to try and draw attention to that website rather than people come on. But once that story pops up, we have a social media person in New York who basically, covers all the markets. And once I post a story, they're able to push it out on Twitter, and I think we even have a Facebook page. So that's kind of the strategy on that for us.
Amy?
Not so much in this job, breaking news on social media. Our priority, of course, is our print paper. So as much as we, scoops as we can get into the paper, of course, is number one. And then online. But I have had other jobs in media. I used to work for a company called Patch, which once was owned by AOL. And, we were really encouraged to get things up on Twitter, even if it's breaking news. And, oftentimes we'd be live tweeting, and then compile those tweets into a story for, 30 minutes later or whatever it was. In this current job at the Business Chronicle, there will be instances where, say, I go to a press conference and I know there's, 10 other reporters there, and, I will tweet, as things happen, just because there's no chance that that's going to be a scoop for anybody there, right? So, you just hope that you can get at least a little bit of information out to your audience. And so that may be an instance where I'm breaking news online, but I'm one of 10 reporters doing that. So
kind of a off the script question for you guys. Do you follow other reporters, and do you kind of compete in terms of your followers versus their followers? So if you're at something like that and you break news, you're hitting 2,000 people and they're only hitting 500. Is it competitive on that level?
I'm highly competitive. Of course I want to beat all the other reporters.
Look, unlike
including
Amy's,
you, Jared.
Yeah,
sorry,
unlike Amy's 20,000 Twitter followers, I only got like 500. So to me, if I'm breaking news on Twitter, it's like tree falls in the forest. Anybody going to hear it really? So no, I don't. I mean, you have to if you're at a press conference or something, or at our events, Bisnow events, which by the way, there's going to be one in next week, Midtown. I'm kidding. I'll tweet stuff as people say things very interesting during our events, not because I'm trying to break news, because I'm just trying to share something I think is pretty interesting, and I also know that it'll get picked up and retweeted by the people, so its spread is more extra. But it's not, in that sense, breaking news. It's just reporting a factoid.
Okay, so kind of continuing in this vein, are there specific companies that you follow on social, and if so, why? Is their content different than somebody else, or kind of what draws you to them? I'll let you continue, Jared.
Yeah, I mean, I follow all the big shops, and if I know a broker, somebody who has an account, I'll follow it. I don't expect to get much out of it. There occasionally, there's a small circle of people in our industry that are very active on Twitter, and particularly on Twitter. And sometimes interesting tidbits will come out from them. But for overall, the groups like JLL and the CB, they're just reposting press releases or blog posts, which don't necessarily have an immediate news interest, but interesting to read and keep up with.
I mean, I echo what Jared said. I'm following, of course, companies on my beat, brokers. It's a goodwill, it's goodwill too. I mean, you want them to feel like you're interested in what they say. And of course, I follow North American Properties.
She had to say that. No, I'm kidding.
And Mark Toro is one of those people that's very active on Twitter, and I enjoy reading his tweets.
Yeah, but that's a good question. Is that really Mark Toro, or is that you?
I mean, it's pretty fun, and Mark is quite prolific on Twitter. He loves social media, and he's such a huge advocate of it. And everyone in our company, we always tell each other, if you're not following Mark, you're crazy, because you can wake up every day and know exactly what's in his head and what's going to be landing on your desk. So you can plan ahead, But he's great, and he's in terms of and you can always tell where his head is, whether it's walkability or it's transit, or you can always tell where his head is. So he's a good one, and I think if you look at, I think he's probably one of the top in the industry in terms of number of followers for being a single CEO type who's out there tweeting about this industry. And but the people who he follows, that's what I like to do too, is I like to look for people whose content I find engaging, and then I'll go look to see who they're following or whose content they're retweeting or sharing. And it's sort of like you can help curate your own content based on those who you really appreciate, and they can sort of help you co-curate your own content.
All right, a quick question on this too, and follow up from Liz. And I'm curious too, because I think this is an issue a lot of companies face, is Mark is really good, and he kind of knows what to say. But how much do you monitor your other employees' social media accounts, or do you? And is there a concern that, say someone from another firm has their own blog, and it might be a personal blog, but if they were to say something controversial or that would upset a lot of people, does that then reflect on your company, and how do you handle that?
That's a really good question, and it's definitely something that you have to pay attention to. I'm trying to think if we've had any examples of that, and we do, because a lot of people in our company are social as well. I can't say that we've actually ever had an issue with that, and if we did, we would address it
policies
quickly.
And guidelines in place?
We do, but they're not that strict and like in your face. It's like I know they're written, and we've shared them. But honestly, the people the one that's coming up, and I just heard this recently at a conference, it's like people who Snapchat, I'm not into Snapchat. Are any of you Snapchatters? Okay, so that content goes away in 24 hours, right?
Technically,
yeah. Technically, it goes away. So I think that those who are on Snapchat probably don't think so much about what they're posting there, because they don't think of it as permanent and they know it's going to go away. I think that I'll have to say that I think the millennials have gotten better about understanding that social is forever, and that people are checking your social. If you're interviewing for a job, I don't know about you guys, but every person that we look to hire, we're scanning to see if they're on Twitter. We want to see how many. But even in the interviews, I'll be sitting there scanning their social profiles while we're talking, because you can learn so much about them while you're doing that. And I think they're learning how important it is, and how important it is to maintain integrity and professionalism, even within their accounts. I can't say that we've actually had any issues with that. The biggest issue we have is trying to keep Mark from tweeting things before he should be tweeting things. It's like we'll sit in a meeting and someone will say, and 3 words come out of your mouth and he picks his phone up and you're like, put that down, because he loves to tell people everything. And so our biggest challenge is keeping him, quiet until it's time to tell what we need to tell.
Can you talk about the perhaps other problem, so getting C-level people on board who are not comfortable with social media? What tips you might have for people who are like, oh, social media, mm-mm.
It's hard to get someone who's not comfortable with it to just start tweeting. It's not something, if it doesn't feel right, they're not just going to go in there and start doing it. One of the things that helped me is by using it as my news source. And if you go in there, I think about, Daniel Easton's our director of marketing for Atlantic Station. He is like obsessed right now with getting Twitter followers because he started to see, he would like retweet something or he would see something interesting and he'd share it and 2 people would follow him. And he was like, oh, it's like, I have influence, and so he writes the number of Twitter followers he has on his window every day. But it's important to him because all of a sudden he's starting to recognize that people find his content interesting and they're sharing it and they're following him and it's kind of, it becomes like Amy said, it's kind of a competition. You want to be the best. So to get people into it, I start off by saying create a news feed and start reading things that are interesting to you. And when you see something that's interesting, all you have to do is hit retweet and you kind of get into the habit of sharing content. And then you might actually have something that you find and you're like, that's really interesting, and you see that little bird in the corner, you share it. So it's not as complicated or scary or like, oh, I have to sit here and figure out how to say something in 140 characters. There are so many easy ways to get into it by just sharing content that you find interesting without having to really create anything. So I think there are easy ways to get into it.
Okay. So a slightly off topic in terms of social media, but more content publishing. Where do you feel like video plays a role with commercial real estate? Do you feel like it's valuable? Do you ever look at it? How do you feel of it as a tool? Liz, you want to start?
I know that we personally use video a lot because we think, it's from if you scan social metrics, video is really popular in terms of sharing and views and that. But it has to be interesting. We videotape about everything. I did a presentation last week, and I had 11 videos in it that I was sharing. And that was just one of about, 11 of about, 100 or so that we probably have on between Atlantic Station and Avalon's sites. Probably more than that. We probably have 200 videos. We videotape everything. But it provides great content for sharing on social. It's great content to share with leasing prospects. It's a great way it's content to share with various news sources who are trying to understand when we are trying to discuss a concept. I think it's just an extension. If someone can't be where you want them to be, and you share it with them on video, then it's like having them there. We love it. How about you guys?
Quality-wise, what do you guys also feel? You feel like it can be?
I was just going to say, too, we shoot on everything from our iPhones with iMovie to bringing in professionals. If we have an event, we want to make sure we have something that's, very well, covered and beautifully produced. We do that. But we do a lot of stuff just using iPhones and iMovie.
Okay. Amy?
I think in my business, slideshows still rule over video. We see a lot more page views on slideshows because it's quiet, right? You can sit there at your desk and click, click, click. Our videos don't do as well as the slideshows. Of course, they're great for tours of new projects or interviewing chefs. We've done that, or our Dragon Con video every year is like pretty popular. So there's certain topics where videos really, really work. But overall, I think the slideshows works better for us. Us individual reporters don't do a lot of videos, but slideshows.
Okay, Jared.
Yeah, I go back to target audience. I mean, if you're in multifamily and you don't have a content-rich website with videos and lots of pictures for your apartment, I got a question if you're really effectively marketing. And I've heard this from someone else speak before. where they're actually, I mean, from what I understand, in the multifamily world, they're leasing more directly on websites than they are actually people coming in for property tours. Now, if I saw Sim. Is Sim here still? He left? All right, well, I mean, if you're Sim, are you going to do a virtual 360 tour of a warehouse? Probably not. Not very interesting to see, a blank space. So again, it goes back to who your target audience is, and how much effort you're willing to put into it. For us, I have a video camera. There are occasions I'll post a video clip, something someone says. It's just another tool, another way to get some content out. I don't think it's any different in terms of reach. At least I haven't perceived any difference in terms of reach or readership if I post something on video versus just writing it.
Okay. I'll just add to that from a video perspective. When I'm talking about video, we're talking about we do so much programming in Atlantic Station and Avalon and so many events that we will document the events and create little anywhere from 1 to 3 minute videos of the experience so that the next year when we have that event, people will say, oh, I saw that. It looked like so much fun. We're going to go. Or we can share it with a sponsor who's like, oh, that looks amazing. I might like to sponsor that. So when we're producing content like that, it's more from that perspective than it is to show a building or the inside of a building or the inside of a space. We also had a competition where we brought in a socialite to Avalon who actually won a year of life for free in Avalon. She lives there for free. She got a $60,000 prize package from all the retailers, and she documents it. So she has 78,000 YouTube followers, and she gets paid for every time. Every time I think 100 people view one of her videos, she makes money on that. So it's like there's a lot of money to be made in video, but from our perspective, she also produces videos while she's on site in Avalon and shares her experience there of her perfect year, and she created a video of the inside of one of our apartments that was designed by West Elm, and it got like 14,000 views. So it kind of depends on how you're using it and what story you're trying to tell, and whether or not someone looking at it or having the opportunity to watch it is going to find it interesting as well, and that content would be shareable.
So I'll wrap up actually with that storytelling question. So for Jared and Amy, your storytelling approach is, what is your goal with your storytelling?
Breaking news.
Breaking news. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, breaking news, giving people great information about projects that have impact in the city. I mean, it's always about the impact for us.
Elaborate a little bit on that, actually, because it is about breaking news, but I call it kind of what I try to do is there's something called the water cooler test. If I'm writing something and posting something that is not yet really being discussed around the water cooler, then that's relevant. And that's really what it's all about, is my news relevant? Because if it's relevant, then people are going to actively come to see what I have to say and what I'm writing. If I'm writing something that everybody already knows about, it's not that relevant. So that's where, and I'm not perfect at it, but that's what we try to do. We try to get ahead of the news, far enough along the curve where not everybody is knowing about it yet and talking about it around the water cooler.
Okay.
I guess I'd add just a little too. I hope, what we really strive for at the Chronicle is to provide some market intelligence. So, this project that's happening, like I said, what's the impact? What's the broader trend? Is it that this submarket is all of a sudden seeing a bunch of hotel development, and this is why, because the occupancy rates are, soaring, and so just trying to give a broader context for the things that happen in the city is, I hope, what we do well and why people read us.
Great. That's pretty much our last question. Time to open up to the audience. Are there questions? Go ahead.
This question's for Liz. You were talking about it's the 9-point plan for Atlantic Station, and having been there a few times the past couple months, you kind of still changing the vibe, so to speak. What were sort of the two big bullet points, sort of two of the main points in your 9-point plan for you guys, taking the office component out of it, just focusing on the retail piece? What are a couple of the bullet points of the retail component that you guys are really trying to, revamp when you guys took over the project?
When we took over the project, I can really put it into 3 buckets. The first bucket was to stabilize the asset. So there were so many perception problems from a security perspective, and people hated the parking, which I think added to the security perceptions. And we had retailers who were like, it's not working, and they wanted to leave. So the first step was to stabilize the asset. The second bucket was to re-merchandise it. We found that in all of the comments that we got back, that the merchandise mix just wasn't resonating with the in-town crowd. And if we wanted those people who could walk there to walk there, we had to give them a reason to. But they did not want to get in their cars and go to Buckhead to shop. They wanted Atlantic Station to have what they were looking for. So we really focused on re-merchandising. We de-leased and then released to retailers that would resonate with the in-town crowd. And then the third bucket, or the third point, was to repopulate. So throughout that entire process, we programmed like crazy and held events that would resonate also with the in-town crowd, or the creative class, and those who should be coming to the property, to get them to come back. And they'd come to the property and experience change. So it wasn't about us blasting out, posting, running ads saying, look what we've done. It was inviting people to come in and experience it and then take the message back out again. So the re-merchandising piece was key, and getting it right for the Midtown market. Does that answer your question?
Other questions? Kirk?
Two questions. Amy, you are in a very diverse group of people in terms of age, demographic. I got people with a little bit gray hair, and then young people like you. How much internal debate do you guys have about social media, and what the old timers need to be doing?
So I guess you're asking about the reporters at the Chronicle. Yes, we are diverse.
And Ed Baker.
Diverse ages, and definitely we each have our own approach to social media. If any of you follow Urvash Kakaria, you may notice he has a certain style about how he approaches it. And Dave Williams, on the other hand, he's been our government reporter, been a little bit slower to adopt it. I mean, I guess it's just like Liz said, just kind of quit looking at it like it's something daunting, and start small, retweet things, post a picture when you're out of the beautiful Atlanta skyline. People love that. I mean, that's like one thing you can always do, take a picture of something, and you won't believe how many people will favorite it. And so you start small. Don't be afraid. I mean, I think it is you have to be careful about what you say as far as personal things or opinions as a reporter or anybody. Actually, I would ask the fellow panelists. I think there is an interesting balance between putting out professional content and personal content. You don't want to always just sound like a robot, and so you want to throw in this personal tweet every once in a while. Because people do want to get to know your personality a little bit, but it is kind of a balance, and I'm curious y'all's thoughts on that too.
What is there kind of a percentage, 80-20 rule, like 80% professional and 20% personal?
That's a good question, and I don't know that there's a rule, but I agree with you, and about making sure that people can get a sense of your personality. There's so many people that I know only on social, and then you might end up somewhere and that person's there, and they'll come up to you, or I've been in places with Mark, and people will walk up and go, hey, and they act like they're friends, because they've been following Mark on Twitter and they know where he's been and what he's been doing, and they ask questions. And it's like you start creating personal relationships. So I do think it's important to sort of influence or imbibe a little bit of your personal, what you like to do, and things that just you find interesting. I think it's I've noticed on Instagram, for me personally, it's like I will be very focused on one thing because I'm there and it's fun and it's cool, and I'll post it a lot. And then I'll get a lot of followers that relate to that, and then all of a sudden I'll move on to something else because that's my nature. I'm sort of like I'm always new, what's next, and I'll get on that. And then the people that were following me because I posted like a really cool picture of like foam on the top of coffee will be like, I wonder why she's posting that picture of that squirrel, so it's like my content varies. And so I guess you have to also decide what you are and what your focus is going to be. And like I said, Instagram's kind of all over the board, but on Twitter you can be sort of consistent so people know what to expect when they get there, and then also share your personality. So I think it's a good balance.
As I said, my Twitter account is my personal account. I do post stuff on there related to work, but it should no way and reflect the opinions of my company, because they're not. I'm probably a little more less professional and more personal on Twitter. When I do comment, as I said, I'm more of a lurker. I tend to post a lot of jokes, and they're really bad, but that's just kind of my personality. But I said, because we have our own social media person, and we have an account affiliated with our company that I rely on for that aspect. It has a lot more followers than I do anyway.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
This is sort of an old school question, so Jared, this may be for you, but okay, so out in the world that we're in, and we hear a rumor, and we send that rumor to Amy, Jared, and say, we heard that this asset is a contract out on it. Do you know anything about it? Which may be a lead for y'all to follow up on. Under what circumstances do you get back with the originator of that question and say, here's what's going on?
I'll get back to you right away, but whether I have the actual answer for you is, without.
I mean, later on. Then.
Yeah, well, if someone gave me a tip, I hear this, and I confirm it, I'll go back to that person. I went, yeah, you're right, I just confirmed it, and then it's going to show up tomorrow in my, or it's going to be online in like 10 minutes type thing.
And is there a lot of that happens?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hey, look, information is Amy and I's currency. I mean, you want to get in our, you want to build a relationship with a reporter, get in good graces. Tips is the money that does it. That's the way you come to the show. So, more the merrier.
We've got time for about 2 more questions, and you had a question.
Now, for those younger folks in the crowd, the baby boomers, that Twitter is something new to us, and trying to grasp it and how we can use it, is there a good source that somebody like myself, I like to read, I like to educate myself, to learn how to use the tool. Is there a good source that you guys could recommend that we could utilize, something online?
Yeah, I mean, I'd just say Google. Just Google, Twitter for business or Twitter for professionals, and there's so much content out there that would sort of help that. It's like, Amy and I were both saying, it's just starting small and developing a comfort level with it. As soon as you realize how easy it is to get news and that you can get everything in one place because you're choosing who you want to follow, you start there. Who do I want to follow? All the things that you do every day, the resources that you go to every day to read, whether it's, physically or the news, the programs that you're watching on TV to get your news, or whatever websites you might be going to, you can pull all those into your news feed on Twitter and just start following them in one place and get 140 character headlines. It's like makes life so easy. And then once you get into that and you're like, oh, that's so cool, that's interesting, retweet, and then all of a sudden you've posted and you are live in the Twitterverse. So it's but I definitely, I'd get in there and I would Google and just look for little sound bites of Twitter for business, Twitter for professionals.
There are some other resources, Smart Briefs. They do a lot of newsletters in different categories, but they have one for social media. And they're kind of case studies about what other companies are doing, and you can kind of learn that way. Another good resource is HubSpot. They have tons of free articles on marketing. Mashable is also a great tool to go to. So kind of go to those places, and you can look for case studies on Twitter for commercial real estate, and they'll come up with a bunch of things that I think are good examples and not so good examples as well, so you can learn from the mistakes also. One last question, Jeff.
Liz, I was just curious if y'all have experimented with any sponsored social media stuff, with Twitter, Facebook, or other outlets, any advertising within the social media platform?
I'm not sure, I don't know that we've done anything that's from that perspective, but we do actually have social media packages that when we do have a sponsor who comes into the property, that we offer them packages on social. I'm going to tell you one quick story that relates to Urvash. He is a Tesla driver, in case anyone didn't know that. And there's a Tesla pop-up right now at Avalon, and he spotted that. And we also have Tesla superchargers at Atlantic Station, so we got this thing going on with him and Teslas. we have our Tesla pop-up. We started following the Tesla Facebook page in the market. You know, we went in there and just became a member of that and invited the Tesla drivers in in Alpharetta to park at Avalon using our valet for free. Well, people who have Teslas don't like you to touch them. So they're like, we're not going to give you our car. So we're like, okay, you can use our meters for free. Bring your Tesla, you can park for free. Urvash got a hold of that, and he was like, hey, if everybody's going to Avalon, let's meet up. And he scheduled this meetup, and there were 30 Teslas that came and 60 people, and they had lunch at the Oak. But, you know, that all came from just that. And now Tesla is so fired up about Avalon that they're going to do a 3-year deal there, you know, with a showroom and continue to sponsor our valet. So it's you just never know what's going to come of it, but just by listening and paying attention and engaging and making friends and following Urvash and Amy and Jared. I mean, these guys are great. I should have said earlier, these are 2 of my resources here because they both are great about posting what's new and what's going on. So they're both great resources.
All right, Kurt, last question.
Liz, how much analytical statistical information do you feed back to your tenants and your investors about your social media? Do you give them any type of feedback and how many hits you're getting, et cetera?
Certainly, we do. We use it a lot like we do PR. You know, so we'll track the number of impressions we get for, you know, any given, you know, program. We're actually pulling that together right now for a presentation that we have coming up next week. But like for one example, the Perfect Year, our Perfect Year socialite, the one who's our storyteller, who's living on site and telling her stories, there have been over 800 posts using the hashtag Avalon Perfect Year with 2.3 million impressions. And so it's like we do measure that and we do analyze it, and literally every day they monitor their posts and they can see how many shares did I get, how many likes did I get, how many people favorited this, how many key influencers did we reach in this process. And that's how we sort of plan what our following posts will be, by which ones are actually engaging the audience. So we do share it, and it's one of those where people are like, is there any value to that? And it's like, yeah, it's amazing what we can accomplish just using social. So we do track the metrics and we do share them.
All right. Well, hopefully this was helpful for everybody, and thank you for coming, and look forward to seeing you at the next event. And thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you, guys.